Welcome to the Muddy Waters podcast. And here, man, that's a good way to start. This is where if we had an edit, this would be a great thing to edit out. I am your host, Chuck Ellis, and we are here today on Monday, October 20th, for the 118th episode of the Muddy Waters podcast. And we exist to help the people of Maine better understand what's going on here in our state, to elevate conservative voices, and help people, again, know what's really happening in our state and know how they can get involved and how they can, join the movement to push back against the radical left. And so today, one of the ways we do that, we bring on people from around the state and hear their stories and their involvement in political activism, or from candidates and things like that. And today we're fortunate to have with us Mason Carson. Thanks for joining us, Mason.
Thank you for having me. Good to finally talk to you in person. We've chatted a little bit here and there, but I'm up in Aroostook County, way up north.
Yeah, way up north.
I like it up here. It's quiet. So
yeah. The county. It's not Aroostook County, it's the county.
It's the county, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Well, thanks for joining us. It's been fun communicating via chat and X for I don't know how long, maybe a year, maybe a little bit less. And meeting you in person, being able to have a conversation. Recently I've joined the Ray Richardson show on Mondays from like 8 to 10. One of the things they say a lot of times is that the conversation off the air, like during the breaks, is better than what happens on the air. Is one of the comments, and I would say that the same is true for me anyway, of the Muddy Waters podcast, because I have great conversations with my guests, some before and then sometimes after, and things that just fun conversations. Some stuff that wouldn't make sense to do as part of the podcast, but it's fun for me. Right. Yeah, so had a great opportunity to connect with you before we came on, especially since our first time actually connecting and speaking, even like where I could hear your voice. So thanks again for joining. And one of the things I like to do, people who watch a lot will know this, is I want to hear like who you are and where you come from before we get into any of the other topics that we want to discuss today, and like current what's going on here in the state, what do you see happening, what are your thoughts about the Maine GOP and all that kind of stuff. But before we get into that, I just want to, like I said, hear who you are, where you come from, what you've done in the realm of political activism, and why you care, and all that other kind of stuff, and how hopeful you are. We'll get to that later. Right.
Well, it's a kind of an interesting story. It was back in 2015, the day Trump went down the escalator. Prior to that, I'd never been involved in anything political. I was just, I didn't watch news. I, didn't follow politics at all, had no inclination of what it was about, in real life, other than what I've seen in passing on TV, but I'd never experienced anything political. Of course, I have young children, and the Obama years were so rough on us. I said, I got to do something. So I just got online. I didn't know even where to begin, and started this big Facebook group. It was called Donald Trump Cyber Army. And my whole thing was to try to get people to get active in the Trump campaign. So how it really started was I just got on Facebook and started posting things. My group started growing. Slate, liberal rag, did a hit piece on my Facebook group and called it Donald Trump's Internet Bunker, where reality is optional. And one thing I noticed, that Republicans weren't really active on the internet. So I was like in that, you've heard of the meme wars. I was in the very beginning of that. I was pumping out memes every day, and like gaining a lot of
creating memes. Okay,
yes, nice. I still do that. Awesome. Creating memes and pumping them out and making them go viral. And I just had an inkling for it because I've been an internet troll since like the dawn of the internet. So doing this online stuff was kind of fun for me.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden I got reached out to by somebody in the Trump campaign. Apparently nobody up here, like in the Republican Party, wanted to be involved with that. And they couldn't find anybody. And they said, hey, we know you're really big on this online thing. We'd like you to jump in and help us, do our campaign up in northern Maine. So I was like, heck yeah. I was like, I'll do that.
So this is like, is this pre-primary?
This is pre-primary. This is this is like a month. Well, it was it was right before the primary had even gone into full swing.
Yeah.
And in 2015.
Yep.
And so next thing I know, I'm getting this huge boxes from Trump Tower at my door. Hat full of t-shirts, hats, signs, you name it. I had just piles of Trump stuff. And this wasn't being sent by the GOP or anything. They had return addresses from Trump Tower on them. This stuff was sent right from the campaign to my house. So they basically just would call me, tell me what to do, tell me where to go. I spoke for Trump at 2 Republican caucuses at the time. I had to do one in Presque Isle, which I bombed miserably. I had never spoken in public in my life, like not even in high school. I skipped that day. We had to do public speaking. I fumbled it so badly. Then went down to Holton from Presque Isle. After doing Presque Isle, I went to Holton and they called the police on me down there at a Republican caucus. They would not let me in with any of the Trump signage or anything. And they had to get on the horn with people from the Trump campaign who had to call the GOP, who had to call the caucus runners and tell them, no, you can't arrest this guy for being there.
What was the reason? Is it just because you were there representing Trump?
Because I was representing Trump and never Trumpers were running everything. So, so then I was
crazy. Like, I forget how the world was like back then.
I was treated like a pariah by everybody. The GOP didn't like me. Half of the Republicans hated me. And then all the Democrats obviously hated me. So I was getting hate from everybody. And of course, Cruz was their top guy. They all wanted Cruz.
I'm sad to say I voted in the primary. I voted for the Weasel. I shouldn't say that. He reminds me of a weasel, but I've got myself in trouble now. No, I'm just kidding. But like I voted for Cruz, but I was a little bit later to the Trump team. But he seemed to be the front runner. I was planning to vote for Carson, but then he had dropped out before it came to Maine.
Right. No, it was very interesting getting my nose, into that scene because it was completely foreign to me. I was just, completely green. I voted before. I was Green Party, actually. I had never even registered Republican until 2016.
Well, same here, actually. I registered Republican in order to be able to vote in the primary.
Yeah, that's why I didn't realize I wasn't a Republican. That was even the funniest part. I went to go into the registration place and they said, oh, you aren't even registered Republican. I'm like, oh, so I had to switch my registration from Green Party, which I think some hippie talked me into joining it back in the 90s. And I think when I voted for Ross Perot. So, it was.
It's funny. Like I love looking back in time a little bit because I wasn't involved in the party until like 2022. 2021, I made the decision to run for House, so I was not involved in the party. And again, I wasn't even enrolled as a Republican until that primary. And then when I moved to Cape Elizabeth, I lived in Cape for a year and a half. When I moved there, the next time I went to vote, when I went to register, I actually changed back to unenrolled down there. and was unenrolled until I decided to run for office in 2022. So anyway, that's but like, so I definitely was not up on the drama within the main GOP at the time. But it's so interesting because obviously the Republican Party is Trump's party now. But you know, when he came, it's just so fascinating, like how different things are within the party now versus where they were back in 2016. So I'll let you continue, but that's just like so fascinating.
No, yeah. Like I was saying, I was there on escalator day. That was, that day got me so pumped, and I never lost that through the whole campaign. I mean, so I did like parades, I did fairs, I did any kind of event. I was there representing Trump, and he had representation throughout all of Aroostook County, which is the largest county east of the Mississippi. So basically, I was traveling all the time, working 40 hours a week, and probably putting another 80 hours a week into the Trump campaign. I'm not even exaggerating. Wow. Every waking moment that I was not even at my job, when I go on my breaks, I was making phone calls for Trump. I had the Call Fire app on my phone, and I would just start doing cold calls on my breaks at work. And then I'd get off work, and then I'd be right back at it, either online or in real life, or taking days off of work to do events or parades. I probably traveled thousands of miles in my old beat up truck, going around from event to event. I spent thousands in my own money doing this. I mean, I wasn't getting paid anything. I was a volunteer. I was doing this for nothing. I was,
wow.
And
so obviously that's a big deal, right? Like going from not being involved in political advocacy at all outside of like posting online to doing all that for Trump. What was it? I mean, like I've heard a lot of people have their reasons, but what was it about Trump like that caused you to immediately be willing to do that much work for nothing just to try to get him elected?
It was the change part of it, because the same old, the Bushes, the Romneys, the McCains, there was nothing different about any of those people. They were all the same person. And Trump was just a off the wall, completely different thing. And I'm like, okay, they've been doing this for 30, 40 years, and it clearly ain't working. I'm going to go with this guy. That's basically when I saw that he was running, I'm like, I'm going with this guy because he's not like any of these guys, because I didn't want anything to do with, that side of the, Republican Party that was failing. It was a dying party, really.
Well, what's really fascinating is partly because of Trump, and I think a lot of people don't recognize this and don't see this, and maybe they're not paying close enough attention or whatever. But like, yeah, I mean, at the time, I was we'll call it even though I was, registered unenrolled, I was a Bush supporter, we'll call it. Like I voted for Bush both times, and I defended him. Now I don't, by the way, I don't defend the Cheney presidency at all. My joke there, right? Like,
and I voted for Bush too. I mean, I there's things I didn't know about politics, what things, real life, what it was about. I only knew he was the guy who wanted to let us keep guns and stop abortions. That was
right. Yep, exactly. And for me, to my shame, in my early like political understanding, it was like that the main issue was a moral issue over abortion, right? And that's what had me voting conservative. And I was not educated on any of the other issues. And obviously, like I probably think I would say that Bush would have been better than Gore or Kerry or whatever. But yeah, I mean, they were all, to your point, like the thing that made Trump different is they were all basically part of the deep state. Right now, they're still deep state, or whatever you want
Right.
to call it, deep state establishment, whatever term you want.
Right.
The Uniparty, whatever it is, right? There's still members of that are within the Republican Party right
Oh
now.
yeah.
The easiest ones
Oh,
to pick
definitely.
out are geez, man, I say the
Well,
easiest.
the majority of main Republicans are still uniparty. So,
I don't know if I say the majority, but there are definitely some there. But I
oh
think,
yeah.
like, what's his name? My brain. What the heck? The former Senate Majority Leader and Minority Leader for the Republicans in
Oh,
in
Bennett,
Washington.
Rick Bennett.
No, in Washington.
Oh, in
In
Washington.
DC, Lindsey Graham, but then this other guy, Mitch
Oh,
McConnell.
Paul,
Jeez, Mitch McConnell. Right.
Mitch
These
McConnell.
are
Yeah.
great examples of people who are definitely, part of the Uniparty.
Yes.
And then like the Democrat side at this point is largely owned by the swamp, that same swamp, we'll call it, and
Right.
then the radical left. So they've got two parts. One is deep state, the other is radical left. Like
Right.
communist, socialist,
Right. Right.
monster, right? So
Well,
that's a
that's like,
scary
yeah,
one.
that's like how we have neocons and we have MAGA Republicans. There's a divide there. Only, we clearly have a majority going because one side could never get the grassroots, and Trump was able to tap the grassroots, and that's how he won. Was people like me who had never been in politics out there knocking at doors, making phone calls. That's how he won. So yeah, that was a different experience for me. I was working like sort of directly under Steve Bannon, and they would call me from the national campaign and basically have me tattletale on the local Republicans now and then for, so are they doing this? They would ask me questions. Are you getting help? Are they giving you signs? And I'd be like, well, no. And I was always honest with them, but I made a few enemies in the state party by being, I guess, too honest.
Who was the chair at the time? Was it back when was Bennett the chair at that point?
Bennett was the chair at the time, yeah. And but he wasn't in charge of the campaign or anything like that. It was Christy McNally who was running the Trump campaign at the time. So basically, any responsibility for that kind of thing was on her. I made a few enemies here and there, but it was all worth it. It was the most exciting time I would say I had in my life. Getting to be on stage with Trump twice, having a film crew made a documentary about me, followed me around for 3 days, which aired in Europe and was like on Europe 60 Minutes. And people from all over France and Belgium and Greece were all sending me friend requests on Facebook. It was kind of wild. Of course, I got to meet like Steve Bannon. I got Trump's autograph, all of that good stuff. But the amount of work I did,
got Trump's autograph. Did you actually meet Trump or just get his autograph?
No, well, we got to talk for like 2 seconds. He actually let him talk to my son. He talked to my son for several minutes. And then my daughter got an autograph and
wow.
And I wanted my kids to meet him because they're going to have that memory for the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
My son was only little at the time and he still remembers meeting Donald Trump. I mean, that was like a big deal for him. He still, so for me, that was the best part about it. I didn't care about, and that's where activism, there's two different types of activism. It's activism that you're doing for you, or are you doing activism for something else? And that's how my mindset has always been. I'm doing my activism for the cause, not for me. I don't give a crap about me. I never wanted fame. I never wanted celebrity status. I easily probably could have had I promoted my stuff and, at the time, because I did have a lot of social media influence at the time. It was around the time people like Jack Posobiec and all those guys were coming up. And I decided not to do that. I was like, I don't want my name out there. I want to do my work, get this guy elected, and and then I'm just going to slip away. That was my whole plan from the get-go. So yeah, I worked my butt off. I worked, like I said, every waking moment pretty much was dedicated to that campaign. I bring my family with me. We'd all, travel around the state, putting signs out, you name it. I've still got pictures of my little, I think he was 8 years old at the time, putting Trump signs up around town. He would help me do stuff, and we'd just do it as a team, and it was fun. And then I recruited volunteers because nobody else could. I had staffed our whole call center for the GOP office. The person that was supposed to be running it was always gone. And usually, hitting a little bit too much of the drinky drink. And so I essentially had to run our local GOP office up here in Prescott. And after the primary, or was it the primary or the general? I think it was during the primary that I ran the call center. It all blurs together because I did so much stuff. Either way, I was running the call center, and I was doing cold calls for Trump, but also for Bruce Poliquin. And we had the most efficient call center in the state. We did more calls than Augusta or any of the big cities. Bangor, we blew them out of the water. We were the smallest, least funded in the state. I was getting Trump signs from this guy was giving me Trump signs, and I was giving them to people for donations to get pizza to give to my volunteers that were making phone calls because we didn't have no money, So, right. So I had to work out, how am I going to, these guys are going to be working here all night. I ended up using my daughter. Actually, she helped recruit high school students. We had 15, 20 high school students all making phone calls, So yeah, it was a lot of work, determination. Of course, then knocking on doors, which I hated. I got threatened so many times. I mean, of course, they see you coming up with a Trump hat. It's you got people that did not want you around, Republicans and Democrats. I would have to say that actually Republicans were worse to me than the Democrats. Cruz people treated me worse than Bernie bros. It was unbelievable. But it was worth it. I got to go to DC, got to go to the inauguration. I got called by the White House, got a personal invitation to the White House, which I was never able to do because I didn't have the money to go. But I did get the phone call recorded from the White House saying, you can come down anytime and just let us know and we'll bring you in.
Is that still stand, you think?
Probably does. I still have the guy's phone number from the White House on my phone.
Let me know. Let's make a trip. I'm just kidding.
I've been thinking about it, actually trying to give the guy a call. I don't know if he's still in the administration this time around or not. He was the head of PR.
Probably not. There's been a lot of changes, but
yeah, and that's the thing. There's been so many changes. I got to have dinner with Steve Bannon and Corey Lewandowski. Chumming with the big boys and talking shop. But overall, and not just what I did here in Maine, I was also getting people to do the same thing I was doing all over the country through my social media group at the time. I was showing people out there what I was doing, taking pictures, posting it, like this is what I'm doing. And I was getting people to go out and do the same thing I was doing. Then all of a sudden I was getting all these people saying, yes, I'm now volunteering. I'm making phone calls. I'm doing this. And then as it came to the general, I was teaching boomers how to troll on Facebook. I'm not even kidding. I was trying to write it out, how to explain to them how to troll, and they just could not grasp it. So I made instructional videos, had a map up behind me, and I would do these instructional videos. I'd make them and post them online, explaining them how to troll other candidates. Then this was in the primary, and I had this thing where I would say, okay, we're going to go to Ted Cruz's page today. And I said, I don't want anybody to say anything nasty about Ted Cruz. We're all going to just put pro-Trump stuff on his page. And we'd all just put, yeah. And then we'd do it to Rubio. We'd do it to all of them. And we just go through, and I would do a big shout out on my group. And I think there was 10,000 people in the group at the time. And, which is small.
This is nationally. This is not
nationally.
Just people here.
Yeah, this is nationally. I'm branching out to all these different states, and that's another thing about when I went to the inauguration. I went with like 7 other people or so that were from that Facebook group from all over the country. We all met in DC, and we all chipped in and got a hotel together. And then this millionaire guy that I knew invited us to this really fancy schmancy hotel. This was probably the greatest time of my life down there. Okay, so, and I'm like, he calls me up. He's like, okay, come to so-and-so hotel bar, and drinks are on me. I said, well, I got like 6 or 7 people with me. Bring them. I'm like, okay. So we all show up. And he's like, and this is a local millionaire who was a big Trump fan, and he had known all the work I had done. And he says, okay, you see these guys here? He goes to the waitress, get them anything they want. If they want lobster, I want you to get them lobster. And the waitress says, we don't have lobster. He said, what did I just say? If these guys ask for lobster, I want you to go out and get them lobster. And So basically, we had an open bar tab at the fanciest place I've ever been in my life. I mean, I'm from the county. There ain't nothing fancy up here. So this was like going into some foreign country to me, having open bar tab, all the food we could eat. So we're in this really fancy smancy bar, and I drank way too much. I ended up peeing off some kind of a statue, and everybody was laughing at me. I didn't care. And then we had then we took photos with the first Black Medal of Honor recipient. He was at the bar at the time, and we all took photos with him. So we got to meet a few people down there. Then they had to carry me back home on the subway. And bear in mind, I've never met any of these people in my life except on Facebook. And but it ended up being a great time. Somehow I woke up and I had like $800 in my pocket. Well, I only went down with $300. I guess what they told me is that millionaire guy was throwing $100 bills at me. I don't know why, but either way, I came back with more money than I went with. And so it was a dreamlike experience, I would say. It was surreal. So then the next morning we go to the inauguration, and of course Antifa set a bunch of cars on fire, and we couldn't get to our seats. National Guard had blocked off the whole route to get to where my seat was in the front, so I had to sit back in the nosebleed section of the inauguration, even though I had tickets for up in the front. Yeah, it was kind of ridiculous. So then I started fighting with Antifa, and I was right up in their faces. I was not happy, but nothing ever really happened, and we all went home, and that's the end of the story, really.
Yeah, Yeah. So what? So a couple questions I have that I think will be fun is like obviously I think you said when you did that your son was about 8, which means he's right around 20 now. So he just got to vote for Trump in the last election.
He, he just turned 18.
Oh,
So
he did.
Yeah, he must have been younger than 8. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I guess must 5 or 6. Yeah.
he's going to be voting in this next election.
Okay,
So
so he didn't. It would have been fun if he'd actually been able to vote for Trump
my
this last
daughter
time
did.
around. Your daughter
My
did. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
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 Nice. You're sure she voted for Trump? I'm just kidding.
I'm absolutely sure.
Well, one of the things that I think is interesting too, like I just as kind of an aside to everybody, like one of the things I've been hearing is like people engaging their kids in the political process at early ages has a significant impact on their involvement in politics in the future. So like the idea, like meeting Donald Trump, for instance, right, is gonna like be with your kids for the rest of their life.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and I campaigned for Reagan with my grandparents when I don't even know how old I was. I was tiny in the 80s. They dressed me up as an elephant and made me walk in parades. So
nice.
I was the Republican elephant, and it was 90 degrees out at the Potato Blossom Festival, and walking down the parade with a elephant suit on. So
crazy. Yeah. So the question that goes on, so like obviously all that happened, and then was life after that like a huge letdown for like the next 6 months, or was it just you know what I mean? Because like all that going on, obviously there's probably a bit of you that's like it paid off, it was worth it, but then like
in a way, I was kind of glad that was over. But then it wasn't long after that I started working in other campaigns. So, and I was jumping right in on the midterms and working on campaigns, state campaigns then. And I worked pretty much right through to maybe, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. It was maybe, 2 or 3 years ago, I pretty much got out of it all. I said, no, I'm
whose campaigns did you work on? Do you look like LePage kind of thing, or Poliquin again, or?
No, I worked on. I worked on Max Lynn's first campaign. He ran for Senate against Angus King.
Okay.
And we primaried against Eric Brakey, who we would have utterly destroyed if he hadn't got thrown off the ballot, which was a whole kerfuffle. And Max was a great guy, but he was a little eccentric millionaire. Weird, a little bit on the weird side, but he's deceased now, so I won't say anything bad about him. But he was a fun guy. His campaign had issues, and a little bit of the bad element got in there and kind of sabotaged it from within and from without. The GOP was against us too, so they sicked lawyers on us to make sure Brakey got the nomination. So
it's interesting that you mentioned that, because everything that I'm new, and I am the party in a sense.
Right.
Although I'm kind of like I don't they're definitely not the establishment. But I'm like, as the chair of the Cumberland County Republicans. And as a result of that, I'm also on state committee and this, that, and the other thing. So in some sense, I am the main GOP, but in another sense, I would say I'm not. I feel like I'm much more grassroots than establishment, for sure. But at least in terms of my mentality, which does get me in trouble with some people from time to time within the party. But
right.
I feel like there's a question coming, but I feel like I'm in this place where I'm trying to do the best that I can to like stay, really much more centered on the grassroots and on the people of Maine and what they're concerned with, especially the conservative minded, and basically I'm willing to partner with anybody who's, looking to battle against the radical left, right? Because they've gone just absolutely insane. And even if we don't agree on, even if I don't agree with people on some other things, like I don't care. We need to build a coalition. We have to defeat them in order for us to be able to then later on have fights about other things. I don't care. We have to win this battle first. And so let's keep our eye on the prize.
Right. Yeah.
So whether that's people within the party or whether that's people outside the party, the official establishment party, whether we're talking legislators or, whatever it is, I don't care. We need to win. And so that's kind of my approach and my focus. But like you've mentioned a couple times, how like the main GOP didn't. And one of the things that at least people are saying, and I'd be interested to hear your perspective on this, is around this idea of, the party remaining unbiased and not having an opinion until after the primary. It sounds like you don't feel that way. It didn't feel
no, definitely not. They have their preferred candidates. Basically, anybody who LePage backs is who they're going to back. Like they did it with Dale Crafts. I was involved in that race too. I was working for Adrian Bennett at the time, which was kind of a heated primary as well. And the establishment was clearly with Crafts, because it all comes down to LePage, who basically pulls the strings for everything in Maine. He was LePage's candidate. Basically, his consultants helped him with his campaign. That's why he lost miserably, by the way. It's just the apparatus. And it's not you guys in the committee. It's the GOP on Higgins Street, which is our problem. These guys are not promoting things they should be when they should be. They're constantly dropping the ball. There's no cohesive message across the board for Republicans. Everybody's just blabbering about different little things, insignificant tax things, or things that the average people in Maine don't care about. License plates, you name it. Instead of real issues like, I can't afford to put friggin' oil in my tank, or, I can't afford my electric bill, or my taxes just went up 25%. There's really important issues going on, and the the GOP just kind of picks and chooses the least important, it seems, things to run on. And we keep losing. It's a big reason we've been losing consistently for over a decade. GOP has been getting obliterated left and right. Like the last major race we won was Poliquin. The only reason he won is he rode in on Trump's coattails in 2016. That's the only way he even had a chance, was by riding. He couldn't even do it again in 2020. Even with that excessive vote for Trump, because we won, CD2 won immensely for Trump.
I don't think he didn't run in 2020, did he?
He didn't run. It was I can't remember who it was, but
I think it was he tried to run again in 2022.
It was Crafts who ran in 20.
I think that's right. Yeah. But either way, he couldn't get
either way. He got obliterated.
Yeah.
And every candidate we put up since has got obliterated. And it's embarrassingly bad losing. It's not just, he lost by a few points. No, they're losing really bad. And there's a reason for that. It's because our party is so freaking out of touch with people like me, with people who just work for a living, hunters, fishermen, you name it, have nothing in common with their messaging.
Which is really interesting. Like I think I definitely agree, and I've voiced to the main GOP, and so I think, and again, being part of it, but I've talked to the chair and some other people, and I think it's like I'm not gonna pull punches on the reality that, regardless of whether or not it's earned, and I think you would say it's earned, the grassroots, the people who are really conservative and really care about our country, our state, all that kind of stuff, and obviously get up and go out for Donald Trump, they don't trust the main GOP, right? Regardless of why, there's
And I
that
think
lack
it's
of
gone.
trust.
I honestly think it's gone beyond that. I think even the moderate conservatives, the Cruz people, the people who were unenrolled but lean conservative,
Yeah.
they've lost them too. And it's really evident if you look at our numbers in elections, like against Golden. Like Trump could win so much of the vote, but Golden's still winning because Republicans don't care about this guy who's running a milquetoast
Austin.
platform.
Yeah, Austin
Ontario. Yes, he's awful. And I actually was trying to get people to troll Austin, Ontario to start talking about actual issues people care about. But all he did, his whole race, was bash Golden and Janet Mills.
And like I met Austin Terry. He came to a Cumberland County Republican Committee meeting before he ran for Congress, and I enjoyed the talk that he gave there. He actually said some things that I thought made a lot of sense. I actually think he's a sharp young guy, but I think you're right in terms of the campaign that he ran. Like what I remember from him, right,
and like, that's where the GOP comes in, though. They're the ones feeding those canned messages that are 30 years out of date that they want candidates to run on.
I don't even remember what he was running on. What I'll tell you is there are two things that I remember from his campaign. I was like trying to get people to vote for him. You know what I mean? Like I was like, get out and vote. I wanted him to win because like I don't want Golden, right? And so like I say this saying like I'm not trying to be critical because I'm a jerk and I'm going after anybody. It's just a matter of this is reality. The only two things I remember he talked about was Jared Golden's flip flops.
Yes.
And that he was a race car driver, right? It's like I can't think of anything else, right? I remember when they had the primary between him and Sobolewski, and I felt like when he was there, like he answered questions the way a politician answers questions. He didn't like come out and say what he thought. He seemed like he was dancing around things, whereas Sobolewski, who like I think. And for him to have been able to win, he would have had to declare a lot sooner. By the time he declared, Austin Terry had already raised a ton of money and already had the endorsement of the Speaker of the House and all that kind of stuff. So he unfortunately didn't.
A total snooze fest too. I mean, he was very low energy.
He was what I liked about him is that he actually this is exactly right. Like when the debates happened, he actually had like full answers and he wasn't pulling punches, which is, I mean, if you ever talked about anything with Mike Sobolewski, that guy doesn't pull punches. But I hear what you're saying. But anyway, to the point where like to your point about like kind of the messaging and the campaign, I agree. I mean, this is one of the constant things. This is actually one of the reasons that I've like tried to get involved more in social media and I'm trying to find a way to project what I think Republicans should be running on, and trying to do what I can there and trying to, if possible, in any way influence the party more in that direction. But I will tell you one thing that like, the more people who start doing this and the more people who call and reach out to the main GOP, like I think one part of the problem is like if there's one person inside saying something, then I'm not going to get heard, right? But if there's a lot of people who are reaching out, who are communicating, who are connecting, who are saying something, maybe there's a chance to have some real change that is needed in terms of that messaging. Because I do think that I think the GOP and again, like I said, I've told them that I think that there's a concern that I have about the way in which they're messaging. And for years, I've talked about the fact, okay, if we're going to win Maine, right? If we're going to win Maine, we have to do better in Southern Maine. We can't do better in Southern Maine if we only message to Northern Maine.
Yes.
Right. And so we have to find unifying issues and a unifying message that appeals to people both in Southern and Northern Maine.
And I came up with this whole platform for Southern Maine. And it was fair. I've been trying to get anybody to run on it since I kind of thought it up. And it was basically fiscal conservatism with ecological conservatism, basically Teddy Roosevelt style, Whig party stuff, call out Democrats dumping millions of gallons of sewage into Casco Bay every year. Because Democrats don't give a shit about the environment. Pardon my French. They care about climate. They don't care that their Democrat-run city is dumping millions of gallons of raw sewage into Casco Bay every year. And that's not even an exaggeration. It's millions of gallons of sewage polluting Casco Bay. They don't care about any ecological problems like the rivers pollution, any of that stuff. They don't want to clean it up. They don't talk about it. They hear about something in the news and it just washes. Oh, climate change. Oh, Trump. That's all everything is about Trump. They don't really even care about any of that crap. And if Republicans could actually work off of that, say, hey, we got a big ecological disaster here. We need to get it cleaned up. How's this going to happen? And started taking those things seriously. The CMP corridor was a huge one. Republicans were on board with it, even though it was a huge ecological mess. You know how many swing votes they could have pulled if they would have opposed that? They could have swept that election easily had they opposed that on the ecological standpoint alone, because they would have got the hunters, the fishermen, the grassroots would have pulled in. And what I've seen from the GOP is they actually want to push the grassroots away. That's what it feels like. They don't want nothing to do with grassroots. They want to run their taxes and their white noise campaigns where nobody even remembers what the campaign is about, and lose elections. And I've seen it firsthand. From Republicans basically saying, oh, we're just going to let Mills do whatever. We're not even going to fight her because she's just going to wreck herself. And then, it's 2 terms later and we're this close to becoming permanently blue, after years of Republicans just saying, oh, we're just, it's going to get so bad that Republicans will eventually vote for us. That's the mentality. And that's not exaggerating. I've actually heard that out of Republicans' mouths in leadership, that basically that is their strategy, to let things get so terrible that people are forced to vote for Republicans. Well, that's what they did in California, and that's why California is permanently blue. There's no coming back from that. And that's where we're going to end up if we don't do something soon.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so man, I keep talking to people about how dark the days are that we're currently in right here.
Right.
Because and this isn't like 50 years ago, we're going to go blue. This is like, the Democrats they're insane. I don't call them the radical left for nothing, right? They are. They have lost their minds. They've lost touch with reality, and they've programmed and manipulated so many people's ability to think, that all they have to do is say Trump, and people are like, "Oh, I gotta go vote blue." It's insane. It's almost like Manchurian Candidate style stuff. Like with the Manchurian Candidates, all they have to do is say the right code word, and then all of a sudden they can program the person and tell them to do whatever. That's the kind of power right now that the Democrat Party, through their apparatus, has over the people that are like in their system, so to speak. So we're in really dark days, and like there's reason to have hope. There is reason to have hope, but it has to be hope with action, right? And so and this is where I've kind of operated from the assumption that, well, I don't know what's going to come out of the Maine GOP, but the people of Maine, I'm very optimistic about. There's a lot of people that I think are more and more people who are getting engaged and getting involved in various ways, and want to fix our state. And I think that one of the admonitions that I would say is let's not wait for the GOP to figure it out and get where they need to be. Right. Although I'm going to try to do my part to see if there can be any positive progress there.
Look at the Maine wire. The Maine wire.
That's been incredible.
If that didn't exist, we wouldn't know anything, because we wouldn't have anybody out there telling us what the other side is doing.
Right.
Because the GOP is completely inactive and defunct. I don't think they've made a Twitter post in like 5 years. You
Well,
know,
they've started. They have gotten better. They hired a communications director, and they make posts. I don't know. You know, I'm not even sure about
it's
Twitter.
watered down and boring. People aren't paying attention to it because it's so milquetoast and repeating the same lines over and over again. It's just become white noise. Like I was saying, that white noise where they go out and they spew the same old canned GOP messages over and over in a political campaign and then lose. And then the next year, do the same thing over again and lose again. It's a repetitive repetition that never wins because it's a losing message. They're they're too afraid to offend anybody to tackle any real issues. Any serious issues that Mainers are facing, immigration, they won't touch that, unless it's a certain okayed by somebody else higher up, but they're just too afraid of their own shadow to make any impact to get the visibility they need to spread the message that they need to be spreading. You look at, I don't remember if you remember a few years back, the UMaine College Republicans. Well, that whole spiel that's going on right now with the leaked text messages of racist Republican kids or whatever.
Young Republicans out of New
Well,
York.
that basically same scenario basically happened here several years ago. And well, what happened with the Young Republican page got super popular, UMaine Republicans. I mean, it was getting thousands and thousands of views, and it was growing immensely and gaining tons of followers. And the GOP went in and shut it down. They basically, and I'm talking the leadership from Higgins Street worked with Amy Freed to basically oust all the people that were doing this stuff and replace them with literal Marxists. They put these they put Amy Freed in charge. I don't know if you know who she is.
I feel like I've heard the name, but I don't know who she is.
She is like she's a college professor, but she's literally a communist, like Andy O'Brien or any of those guys, Chuck Berry or whatever his name is.
So why did they put her? I'm confused. They put her in charge of what?
The UMaine Republicans, and they basically ousted everybody who was popular in that group.
I'm operating from assumption. My initial assumption, I guess, is going to be that they didn't know she was a communist.
Oh, they knew. Oh, everybody knew. The reasoning was that because the Young Republicans were posting things that might have been a little too edgy, they didn't want the left to have ammunition, or they were afraid what the news would say. That they were so afraid of what Democrats think that they won't let Republicans speak out. That's what it all boils.
So that part, like, I mean, I don't agree with it, but I can understand a little bit of that perspective. Again, I don't agree with it, and I'm against it, right? But that's more understandable than placing a communist in charge of
the UMaine Republicans. And this literally happened. This is factual. I'm not exaggerating this. A literal Marxist in charge of the UMaine Republicans. And all the people that were, good in that group that were making it popular all basically got ousted and replaced with these, I wouldn't even call them Bush neocons. They were pretty much communists who were against abortions. That's basically what the UMaine Republicans became. They're basically just a regular democratic socialist who are against abortion and are fiscally conservative, but they're not Republicans. I mean, by any means. Now they have no popularity. Nobody even knows what they do or that they exist, because as soon as they started getting popularity, our side stepped in and like, nope, you can't do that. And
this is years ago though, because I think that they're
yeah, this is years back. I don't remember how many years ago, because it all blurs together into a big political soup.
Well, no, I'm always interested to hear learn more about like Maine's political apparatus. Partly because most of where I've learned about it is on the ground myself, right? With what I
Right.
see and what I'm doing, and then I also hear stuff from people that some of them that I'm growing to trust. There are some people within the
Well,
movement
you're in the game now. You're going to get it.
So,
I mean,
but that this stuff is old enough and is not how a lot of the people involved would would say it out loud.
Same people. I will tell you that much. I'm not going to name names, but the same people who did that are still running the show on Higgins Street. So nothing has changed as far as that goes. And that's where the problem is. The committee, the Republican committee needs to clean house. And I mean, clean everybody in Higgins Street needs to go away. And it needs to be refreshed. And that's one of the biggest problems we have is we need to be getting our messages out there, and that's their job. It's their job to make sure that everybody knows about question 1 and question 2, why we need to be out there. I haven't heard one radio ad on red flag laws, and I'm a hunter. I'm out in the woods in my truck. I should be hearing ads every 2 hours about that. I haven't heard a peep. So what's going to happen in November when people go to vote and 80% of Aroostook County who doesn't watch the news doesn't know that that's even on the ballot, and Democrats just ram through red flag because nobody knows about it. You know.
So in the past, from your experience in the past, you would have heard, like, what radio stations do you listen to?
I don't know, Channel X radio. There's 96.1 up here. Either way, you know,
it's an interesting point, because I don't hear a lot of people talking about radio. No, I'm talking a lot about online, and I think online there's a variety of different means, but like there are a significant portion of your hunters and people who don't spend a lot of time online. Well, so like
there again, I'm not seeing any ads on Facebook either. So
I don't think they're doing ads. I think they're doing posts. But to your point,
that's the problem. They need to be pushing ads to get that stuff out there. And I understand they don't have a huge budget, but there's national money coming in for this. I have seen ads on streaming services. Well, I canceled all my streaming services, but watching through other people, I've seen ads, you know, here and there on question. I think it was question 1, voter ID. I've seen some ads on that, but very briefly, but nothing on Facebook, nothing on Twitter, nothing on any of the major social media, YouTube, nothing on there. It's radio silence. And that's where I'm saying radio too, because, you know, should be on local television, should be on local radio. Everybody gets into their car in the morning. I get into my car in the morning, turn on the radio, and drive to work. You know, it's I go hunting, I turn on my radio, you know, want to listen to the weather. So there's lots of things that we aren't doing that are going to cause us to fail. And if red flag gets rammed through, voter ID fails. So it's just going to be a complete Democrat win in November if something doesn't get changed real fast. And I understand it's still quite early, but I mean, we're a month away. So
yeah, we're 2 weeks away, I'd say.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah.
This is when you should be hearing ads on the radio every day. This is when you should be seeing ads on Facebook every day. And we're seeing nothing. Where's all that money going that the GOP has?
I don't know. That's a great question. I
You know
don't know
what they're
how.
doing? And I'll tell you where it's going. They're saving it for LePage because LePage is the boss of that whole little clique. So they're not gonna spend out on these referendums. They're gonna fail, and then they're gonna spend their wad once LePage gets the nomination against Golden, and then
Yeah,
they're gonna lose.
I just want to say I'm not like so. It's interesting because it might sound like I'm afraid to speak if I think that I disagree with something. There is a reality that like part of what I'm trying to do is I have to build relationships with people, and I don't want to like
Right.
attack them
No.
publicly. I'd rather have conversations, individually, and I'd rather not like I think I want us to win, and I'm trying to figure out the best path forward for
Yeah,
that.
me
So
too,
just to be
man.
very clear, I think that and I think that one of the ways that we do that is we have to like find ways to build up and instead of tear down. And so, but that being said, we can't ignore the realities of the concerns that we
That's
have, and I think so. I think the points I really appreciate the points that you're bringing in the perspective that you're bringing because you're in a lot of ways, I feel like you're saying out loud what I hear, generally speaking, for people in the grassroots. This is the general consensus of a lot of people who are more conservative and want the Republican Party to win, and get out to vote. And I think, like there's evidence, right, in your
yeah.
story that if there was some candidate or if there was a message or there was an approach that you actually believed in, that you would be willing to volunteer and work
And,
hard to make us win, right? And
yeah, and
those
that's why I
people like
kind of
you are you may show up and vote, but you're not out there like creating teams of people to make phone calls, right?
that's where I was going with this whole story is that yes, I busted my butt for Trump. I busted my butt for several candidates. I even little small races locally I worked on, and for like town races. I've helped people with so many things. I've helped candidates in Pennsylvania. I've helped candidates in Nevada. I've done consulting, over the phone, whatever, with other candidates. But I've completely dropped out of Maine because it's almost like it's the old adage, help those who help themselves. And what I've seen personally is that the party doesn't want the grassroots. They're not going to signal to them. They're going to actually oppose them. Why should I lift a finger to help somebody who doesn't help themselves or want my help? You know what I'm saying? That's
Yeah,
what it
no,
boils
no.
down.
I mean, and like, regardless of whether or not they don't want your help, you at least feel that way, right? Like, and I think, but
Yeah,
I think that it does, and sometimes like this is again, I'm still trying to navigate this and figure this out. I'm still new. I've only been the chair of the Cumberland County Republicans for like 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is. And I'm still navigating state committee and getting to know people. Like as I continue to do these podcasts and I bring people on from all across the state, like I'm getting to know more and more people,
right.
and have a better sense of what's going on. But like with any organization, there is like that old guard establishment, and they might not be like swamp establishment, but like there are
No.
sometimes that there are people who are doing what they're doing. Do they want the party to succeed?
Well,
Yes,
if I was to describe the
but
Republican Party in Maine in like one word term, I would say middle school cliques.
okay,
And that's really what it when I was in the Republican Party actively in committees and stuff like that, it felt like middle school. All these people chit chatting behind each other's backs, um, backstabbery. It was like when I was doing the Trump thing, no Republicans wanted any part of it. But as soon as it looked like he wanted to win, they all swarmed in and wanted credit of some kind for doing work. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But it was so middle schoolish to me. It felt like I went back in time to middle school where we were picking on people, jocks or whatever, or geeks. That's what it felt like. It was a middle school clique mentality. And you know, I mean, every institution like this has issues, but I would say Maine's issues are pretty deeply rooted, and it's all culminated into one area of the party that seems to be the biggest problem. And I would and I'm going to say that's Higgins Street, is where the problem is.
Right. And so, and just for those who might not know, Higgins Street is where the party owns a building, house. That's
Yeah.
off the headquarters of the Maine GOP, if you didn't know that. Yeah, so it's interesting. Like I would say a similar. Like I do see a similar sentiment, and I think it's. I don't even know if everybody even knows the sentiment that they have, but there seems to be a little bit of a. We want to win as long as we win my way.
Right.
Right. And so there are some people that almost seem to like some of their behavior seems to suggest that they were almost as though they would prefer us to lose if it's not done their way.
Exactly.
And
I call it the definition of insanity. The definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again, even if it fails. You know, or is that it? Am I wording that right?
It's trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Expecting different results. You know, yeah, that
one.
I'm dyslexic, so you have to put up with that.
That's fine.
Severely dyslexic. I wrote in mirror images for like a long time.
Wow.
It was a little hard to overcome, but I did it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think, like I said, like you're articulating a lot of what I've heard from a lot of other people in the Maine that are like, I would say what's interesting is like, what is the Maine GOP, right? We're talking, well, if you're a registered Republican, then you're part of the Maine GOP, but what we're talking about is really the establishment leadership in Augusta.
The leadership.
And I think you would probably, correct me if I'm wrong, would you expand that to include, legislators, or are you just talking the
not so much the legislature. They have their own separate problems, but it's
well, and that's what I asked that question, because I think to me there are three different, and there you could argue that there are different cohorts within whatever, but you have like three different categories within Maine politics, right? You've got the GOP, right, including the county committees and the city committees and all that kind of stuff. That's the GOP, right? Then you have the legislators, and they're a whole nother thing, and then you have the grassroots. Like those are in my opinion, that's kind of the three elements, and there are there's some overlap across the way. There are some, especially some of the legislators, the people in the legislature who are very grassroots and very connected with, and try to be, be connected with and involved with the grassroots. And obviously same thing with some people in the GOP leadership, but yeah, they are three distinct areas, and I think the place that I see the most hope is actually with the grassroots, and that's where, like, I think that there's some opportunity, and like I would encourage. We have to figure out a way. This is what I'm saying is, like, if the GOP doesn't get to the point, and regardless of how you want to look at it, it doesn't matter what the GOP thinks. What matters is what the grassroots think. And if we can't get the GOP to a place where the grassroots are willing to buy in, then we as the grassroots need to figure out another way. We need to figure out how we can take back our state. Maybe if necessary, in spite of what we don't see coming out of Augusta as leadership.
And the problem,
I'm fully in hot water tonight.
Right. Yeah. And then there's kind of a systematic breakdown into that three-part chain you're talking about, though, because you look at your legislatures and how badly we're losing in them. I mean, we're almost at a super minority right now. Well, where do they get when someone whose job is it to recruit candidates? That would be Higgins Street. Basically go out, not just them, but the committee as a whole of the GOP.
I would guess
it's connected, but the money has to come from somewhere, and that they're only going to back candidates that toe their line, basically promote their canned messaging that comes down from the RNC or wherever, or them, I don't know where. But either way, it's not working in Maine because we are almost at a super minority right now. We're like a few seats away from being a permanent super minority in Maine. Republicans are. That's how bad it is. It's. I don't think people realize.
Define when you say a super minority. What do you mean? You mean
meaning that the party is completely powerless to do anything. Basically, we're going to have and we are basically that now. But
I was going to say, because we don't House, Senate.
But once they get, I don't know the number exactly, but once it gets to a certain point, it's officially called a super minority.
Well, I think we're a ways from that at the moment.
No, we're only a few seats away from that. We're very close to a super minority right now. And I can't remember the number of what it is, but we're maybe like 10 seats away, which is not a big stretch. And if you're talking incumbents terming out
60%, so being or 40% on the super minority, so being above 60% gives you a super majority,
right?
And like, so in the state of Maine, what would that be? My calculator's not in front of me. But there's 186 total seats in the legislature. So I think we'd be looking at like 120. I think would be 115, 116, somewhere in there would be a super majority. Yeah. And I think they have 70 something in the 78, I think in the House, and 18 in the Senate, which puts them at like 106. So I guess you're right. Yeah, about 10 seats away, which is not, to your point. Like, and especially
that's what I was trying to say, that people don't realize how close we are to becoming a super minority. We've been losing every special election.
Not 96. So actually, they're probably 20 seats away. Sorry.
Last time I checked it, it was like 15 to 10 seats, and we're going to be rated. We're going to be in a super minority. So it's dire. And people don't understand how dire that is, that once we hit that super minority, we will probably never be able to get that back. That's what happened to California. Once they got into super minority status, they were locked into that forever.
Well, I think a big part of it, there's a couple of things. One, so we're dealing with some of these issues right now, even though we're not in a super minority, where they control like every level of our infrastructure, right? So the governor, who controls the state police, who controls a number of other things, she also appoints all the members of. I think she's appointed 6 of the 7 members, is my understanding, of the Supreme Court in the state of Maine. Yeah. And they ruled against us. Shenna Bellows was challenged on the wording of questions 1 and 2, and she won in court somehow, despite the absolute nonsense that is question 1. It's absolutely ridiculous and criminal, but guess what? We can't do anything about it because we don't control the Supreme Court in the state of Maine, and this is a state's issue, so we can't appeal it to the national Supreme Court. So that doesn't help us. So we are in a very dire situation. We have to win, I think. But I do think we can. Like, by the way, I do think there's hope there. But I think that we are in a tough situation. One of the things that's been really exciting is seeing all the people starting to come out of younger people in particular coming out of the woodwork after the Charlie Kirk assassination. A number of Turning Point chapters springing up all over the state. We went from 2 in the Club America, which is the high school version, 2 in the state, to 17 in the past like month and a half, right? And there's more coming. And then on the colleges and universities, we're going to have, I don't know, at least 3. I don't know all the I haven't heard all those details because I haven't talked to the person who's in charge of that kind of stuff. But but I think that there is hope, and I think I am Rail, Rael, I can't, said, so what can we do? Recently moved to Maine and feeling I might have to move again. Well, let's hope not, but it is challenging here. And I think, but what can we do? And I think one of the things is like, we can just, like, I think that we can come up with some messaging that we, the people, bring to the streets that is the conservative message. And I think you've brought up some interesting things. I think a lot of this, though, is going to be dependent on who the next gubernatorial candidate is, right? Because I think because like you talk about your situation, you talk about the RNC, you talk about Trump, right? Okay,
Right.
What changed the RNC? Well, Donald Trump. Right. He came in like a wrecking ball and just completely reshaped the grassroots. It wasn't the party at the time that got you involved, that got you connected. It was the candidate that had the right message and was the right person. Right. We need that person to emerge, here in the state of Maine. And the gubernatorial candidate seems like that's the place that they're going to come from, if they're going to come from anywhere. But I think that the short version is, I do believe, in my opinion, unless this is 2022 all over again, which was the red wave that never came. I believe there's a really good chance that we can swing the House here in the state of Maine. I think that is very much within play. I mean, we only lost it by like 60 something votes last year between three different races. If we swung those, we win. And one of the things that's interesting is a lot of people talk about how, well, Trump helped people get elected, and that's why we did so well last year. One of the things that's interesting is not in Southern Maine. Like in Southern Maine, I ran in the House, and I lost, so that's not. But I beat Trump by like 3%, 3 or 4, maybe 5% in my district. In a lot of segments of Maine, not the rural necessarily, but like our conservative candidates actually outpaced Trump. So in some areas, I think Trump not being on the ballot may actually be helpful to some of our conservative candidates. And so, there is some interesting stuff that. Yeah, go ahead.
The way the left has gone now, even when Trump is gone, they're just going to keep this going. They're going to call whoever runs next a Nazi. They're going to call him this.
Yeah. Well, they are.
Just going to be.
My point is, I think that we can still. I think we can still win the House in the state of Maine. I think that's the easiest thing for us to win, and I think we can win that.
I think it's definitely winnable. Not without change, and that's the problem. We are not messaging to the people we need to vote. That the people are going to. We're not messaging to the people who can actually help us win. That's grassroots people, but that's also Maine is majority unenrolled. We don't always vote straight ticket. That's why you see Trump winning a district, but the Republican candidate losing to a Democrat, because one is, that people are voting for the people, not for the party.
So this is what's really interesting about this. I think this is a really good point, and I think it's worth this little snippet here, which is there's an assumption that if Trump won and the Republican House candidate, for instance, Austin Terrio, didn't win, that it's cheating, right? That's not true.
It's not true.
The truth is, right, Trump is a better candidate than Kamala by far, right? Part of it's candidate quality, and part of candidate quality is messaging. I think Jared Golden, we may not like him. I don't want him to be there, but he is he's a better candidate than Kamala Harris.
His team is very good. Every candidate we put against Golden has run the worst messaging that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it's like embarrassingly bad.
Can somebody hire you to help with messaging?
I mean, I'm not claiming that my messaging would beat him, but I know what's awful and what's not working, because it's obvious when you look at the numbers how badly we're losing. And it's not just a minimal loss. When like Austin Terrio, if he would have run a good race, could have beat Golden by 10 points. Close to what Trump did in District 2, but he was a terrible candidate with bad messaging, and you combine those two things, and it's just, there's no way to win. There's no path to victory there.
That's
You got
definitely, so we have to have good candidates and we have to have good messaging. So, do you have a favorite yet in the main GOP gubernatorial race?
I would say probably Bobby Charles probably has the best messaging so far, but do I think he could beat any Democrat in a statewide? I don't. Um, Bush would be who I would put my money on, even though I don't like the Bushes. In a statewide race, I would think he would be the safest candidate that's in the field so far, that would be able to win.
Do you think he could overcome the, like, so,
He would have to really have to prove himself to try to win over MAGA.
Right.
Because MAGA's not going to touch a Bush with a 10-foot pole. But with name recognition, and if you look at the demographics of Maine, we're majority boomer. Boomers know the name Bush. That's why Susan Collins always wins. She doesn't win because she's a good candidate. She wins because they remember she was a good candidate 30 years ago, and they remember the name. So name recognition is big. And that's why I'm worried about when Susan Collins gets elected for her final term, because she's not well. She's going to Ginsburg eventually. If she just keeps running, she's going to end up, getting pulled out of the office in the middle of a term for health reasons. And we're going to have a special election, and some Dem is going to step into her position forever, like Jared Golden did. And we're never going to get that seat back because she didn't line up a successor. We have nobody with a name who can jump in there. The only names people know in Maine are King, Bush, Collins, and a few other, maybe LePage. Although he's a cancer, I would say, on our politics, and since he left office. Every candidate he has been involved with has lost miserably. I wish he would have just stayed in Florida, but that's another point. But you know what I'm saying about name recognition being very important.
Well, and it matters, and that, I think that's a big part of the reason why LePage. I mean, name recognition, everybody knows who he is. Why why he's running in CD2, and I get that
in CD2, but his name is not a winning name. It's it's not. It's not my opinion. It's a fact that every candidate he has endorsed since he left office has lost miserably. Every race that he has been involved with behind the scenes has lost miserably. So it's not. I'm not stating an opinion here. This is numbers. This is math. The numbers don't line up for LePage. Now, granted, his last run, he ran. The campaign was really bad. I mean, he campaigned as all of his social media posts looked like they were written by an 80-year-old grandmother. And he really tried to re-image himself. That was terrible. His writers seem much better this time around. I mean, he does seem to have a little edge there, but I'm kind of worried he's just going to ghost out, kind of pull a Garrett Mason, if you remember that debacle. Have a really good campaign in the Yeah. Well, what that was, he had a really good, strong campaign in the beginning, and then it just kind of went, and you never heard from the guy again. And then it was just he lost. And I could see that happening with LePage, that the energy is going to just flop midway through this campaign, and he's just going to post, and Golden is going to beat him.
Well, hopefully not. I'm really concerned with Golden. I think Golden is a really tough candidate to beat.
He's a tough.
I think LePage is like this is what I'm going to say is I think that I can't imagine LePage not doing better than Austin Terrio. So I'm just going to say
definitely
that, right?
Better.
Like, well, I mean, Austin Terrio barely lost, is all in all reality. So if he's going to do better than Austin Terrio, then he should win. That's like, again, dependent on voter turnout. I am real said I kind of like Bobby, but I don't know enough about him. Well, if you look back far enough in my podcast, you'll find that I did. Before he was running for governor, he was actually on the podcast like 4 times. So just go to
Yeah,
muddywaters.us.
I think Bobby's
and you can find those. Yeah,
Bobby's a good candidate. It's just
I think that like
demographic.
what I'm going to say is I think there are a lot of good candidates in terms of like having the right, like I would just
I
about
think
everybody on the Republican side, I would love to have as governor. I think what we have to figure out as a party is who is the candidate who is the most likely to win and who is the most likely to lead us to victory against the radical left. We don't have
Right.
time to spend the next 8 months in a duel between 10 different candidates. I think we the people, I think that I would love to see some of these candidates like get some polling out there and have the people that are not in leading back out and support the candidate that has the best chance to win the primary. I mean the general election. I think that like that's my opinion, right? There's a lot of people that think that they're the guy to come in and fix it. And I think that let's have them. Let's see what happens. Let's have them tell their story and do their messaging and spend some money on advertising and continue with the debates. The main GOP held a debate. You can find it online. I think they actually did a really good job handling the debate with the lineup of questions, the amount of time they gave people. I thought it actually was really well done. And I mean that. That's not me. But I think we need to figure this out sooner rather than later. We can't afford to not, because we have to defeat the radical left. And so I'm hoping that we kind of figure that out sooner rather than later, and we figure out who the candidate is that's going to be the most likely one for the most people to get behind, rather than spending $20 million on a primary that we could be spent and we could have that money be spent on a general election for a candidate that can win. But anyway, that's it. Like I said, I think there are a lot of really, really good candidates, a lot of people that I really like, and I would love to see in there. But it doesn't matter if I'd love to see them in there if they're not going to get there. So I'm not going to.
Yeah, that's going to depend on their campaigns and their messaging, and that's really what it all comes down to in Maine. I don't even think the LePage name will help him at all if he runs a bad campaign, because it didn't last time.
With LePage, my bigger concern with LePage is that he's going up against Golden, who he's
good.
He's gonna. I remember last year, it's crazy that every other year they have an election and how much money they spend on it, but that's a whole another story. But like, I know that he basically was non-existent until like 3 to 4 months before the election, and then he started to do some things that made it obvious that he was like there. It's just he's really good tactically on starting to do some things that give the middle of the road, your moderate Republicans, your independents, and your moderate Democrats the warm and fuzzies, right? Like he's really sharp about that, the timing of it, and this, that, and the other thing. And so, I mean, I still think LePage can win. Like I said, I think he can do better than Austin Terrio. I think his name is better than Austin Terrio's, and I think he can do better than Austin Terrio. And as a result, I do believe he can win. But I think it's going to be a slugfest, and he's going to have to be ready to go the whole.
That's what I mean. That's why I'm keeping the campaign really close, because if I see that, like I said, that drop off at a point where the campaign just goes milquetoast, and you stop seeing the energy out there, it's going to fail. And he can be really good right now, but I want to see that the whole time. We need to be seeing more. He needs to be in the news for calling someone a faggot again, because that's what people want to see when they see LePage. This is CD2. If he's not doing a statewide race, he can campaign how he wants to campaign here, and the people who are his base is not going to care if he offends people. But
Well,
That's how that's how he won. That's why
well,
he.
To your
But if
point,
he
I mean,
plays,
you're right. Like, I mean, I don't know that I would use that word, but he
no.
he he
I was just he did get in trouble for that. That's why.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, you're quoting him, and he did do that. And so what's interesting though is like that you're part of what people loved about Trump is also what they loved about LePage, right? It's that we knew with LePage 1.0 that he
yeah,
was who he was, and he didn't give a crap what you thought about it. And he wasn't like, he didn't win because he was like trying to get people's votes necessarily. He won
no.
because he was authentic and because it was a split race and he benefited from a divided Democrat Party. But
Well,
but
bear
Trump,
baiting is also part of it. The bear baiting
right,
referendum. He
right.
had there was other extenuating factors that allowed him to win that, which
But
was kind of
a big part of his appeal was his authenticity and the fact that he was not afraid to say things that would offend people.
exactly.
Right. And so that has to be there. That has to be
Did you
part of
see
his
that?
campaign.
Did you see the last race he ran? He ran as a milk toast grandma. I mean, literally, I made a couple memes of him as a grandma because it was that bad. He was acting like a withered, old, weak grandmother who was trying to bake cookies.
He was trying to
You know,
placate some moderate leftists.
and nobody
Because
bought it, and it was
right.
completely inauthentic, and he got blasted. So he cannot win doing that again. I mean, by any means, it's just not doable. He will do worse than Terrio if he does that. So I don't think it's going to come down to it. It's going to come down to the quality of messaging. Promote when you're a political candidate, you're selling a product. If you're selling shit, nobody's buying it. That's what it comes down to. There's no difference in selling a car than there is to running a political campaign. You have a product, you have to describe it to the customer, tell them what's good about it, and get them to buy it. That's your objective as a salesman, and that's how the party and the people running the campaign need to be selling their product to the right people, and selling it in a way that's going to make the person want to buy that. Think of Saturday morning cartoons when I wake up and see a commercial of GI Joes, and I want to run to the store and buy a GI Joe, because the commercial was so awesome. That's messaging works like that, and that's how political campaigns are won. You're selling a product. So
yeah, no, absolutely, and we need to do better than we've done in the past for sure. And we don't have Trump on the ballot, and I think what's interesting is like, I don't think we as a party and on the conservative side in general are thinking through enough what needs to happen. I think Ray was actually talking about this on the radio. Again, I'm on with him on Monday mornings. I'm usually in from 8 to 10. And he was talking about how how do we get people to vote like basically all the way down the ballot? And somebody else was basically saying, oh no, we're trying to message and tell people that we want them to vote all the way down the ballot. And it's like, no. Yes, we want it, and we're going to try to make sure people know that we want it. But like, what are we going to do to make sure that they do? Right. And I think that's the piece. Like, how do we win them over? That's where the messaging that you're talking about. That's where the candidate. So what we need is a consistent message that we can basically message. We need, and this is where the gubernatorial candidate, whoever that ends up being, has the potential to be that vanguard. I don't know if this is the right word with the message, and everybody else can just latch on to that message.
Right.
If it has to be a broad enough message, and it has to be a message that mobilizes, the grassroots and the same type of people who would normally show up and vote for Trump, to get them out so that they not only vote for the gubernatorial candidate, but they vote all the way down. And you know what's interesting?
Right.
I love the fact that the Republican Party is filled with people who have different ideas. I love that we're the party of diversity of
Diversity.
thought.
We really
Diversity
are.
of thought. We really are. But we need to not be so focused on making sure everybody knows that I'm different than the candidate next door in the other district. Because I
Right.
think that there's this like, well, I've got this new idea and I'm going to argue with you about it. And it's like, okay, great. One of the reasons the Democrats do so well consistently is because they are
have
very
unity.
consistent. They have unity. They're not even telling you to vote for them. They're telling you to vote for the Democrat Party. I don't think that we should go that far, but I think
No.
we need to be much more cohesive. We need a unified message. And really ultimately that has to come from the top. And whoever that gubernatorial candidate is really going to need to lead that. And everybody else, we need to get in line with it. That's my opinion. That's what I'm seeing.
The problem with the Democrats too, in their weakness, is tribalism. And if you look back in history, there's no continent on Earth that was tribal that didn't get conquered by an organized, unified nationalist movement. Because nations who were unified went in and destroyed these tribal nations and took them over and conquered them or whatever, because they were tribal. They weren't a unified army. They weren't a unified people with unified language. So, the Democrats have kind of put themselves into a tribal kind of mindset, and to beat them, we have to look at it like we have to kind of unify in a better way to defeat that. And then we can beat them. Because tribalism will fall, because, you have the socialist Democrats who hate the regular Democrats. They've broken up into so many tribes that, and you have your pro-trans, you have your, these things that are so unpopular, voter ID, immigration. There's so many issues that are vastly impossible.
And they don't have any good issues. Yeah, and so
they don't have any good issues, and they're not doing anything about healthcare other than talking about it. So that's what we have to start doing, is getting unified messages on these issues that are their downfall, and use that to attack them. We've got to start coming up with plans for healthcare instead of just willy-nilly bullshit we keep hearing, that doesn't actually do anything. We got to start getting solutions to problems is the big thing.
Yeah.
Instead of just pointing out what the other guy is doing wrong.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, and definitely we need to do that because they are doing a lot of things wrong, but you're right. We actually have to have a clear vision of where we're going and why that is something that the people of Maine want, even if they don't know they want it yet. So, we like it's probably time to. I feel like we could keep talking. Great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we can get somebody on the ballot enough to mobilize you to kind of run some phone banks again and really get people out. If we can get that kind of candidate, I'll be really hopeful we can win. I do think that there is reason to hope, but I think there's a lot of hard work that needs to go into it. There are some bright spots and things that I'm seeing that do give me hope, but there's a lot more that needs to come together, and I think we need to become more unified as a party and as a movement. And so we'll see what happens. But yeah, like I said, thanks for sharing and. Hopefully maybe we'll have you back. Probably we'll have you back on again in the future. It's been a great conversation. So everybody else, we'll see you back here maybe tomorrow. I was supposed to have one tomorrow. We'll see if the person is going to actually come. I've had a couple cancellations over the course of the past couple of weeks, so you just never know. But either way, we'll see you back here later.